Hey, this is Freddie Coleman of ESPN Radio. It's Freddie and Fitzsimmons. You can catch me from 9 p to 1 a.m. Eastern Time, Monday through Friday on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, and Sirius XM Channel 80. But when I'm not on the radio, one of my favorite podcasts to listen to is my man Brian Langford and the Unscripted podcast. You will not be sorry. Give it a listen. Give it a thought. He's going to make sure you're going to think plenty about what's going on in your life. So check it out. Brian Langford on the Unscripted podcast.
Want to listen to the podcast where we talk sports raw and unfiltered?
Mahomes looking to flip, takes it in for the touchdown.
Looking for a little something on the edgy side?
Keep your head out there. They're going to do dumb. Play our game. All right? Play hard, but stay poised.
You're about to be locked into the Unscripted podcast.
Let's be great. Let's be great.
Yep, it is back tonight. The NFL is back tonight. Hallelujah. And I understand that we have the NBA going on, but the NFL is back, so we get the best of both worlds. Welcome, everybody, to the Unscripted podcast. A shameless plug as always. You can follow me on Twitter at Brian Ain't Lying. You know, before I talk about my NFL season predictions, I didn't know there was a such thing as NFL versus NBA Twitter beef. I didn't know that. Like, I thought that, you know, if you watch sports, you watch sports. But then I noticed a lot of people are zoned in strictly to the NBA and ignore the NFL. That, my friend, is not me. When I'm locked in, I'm locked in. So tonight, I get football. Friday night, which I'll talk about later on, I get the Raptors and Celtics Game 7, which I will definitely discuss because I'm not afraid. Everybody knows me. I am a diehard Celtics fan, but I will definitely talk about that later. First, I want to mention about something that happened this week that, to me, was out the blue. So Jalen Ramsey got extended 5 years, $105 million. He's now set the bar high as the highest paid cornerback in the NFL, previously held by Byron Jones for like all of 3 months. Listen, I'm not mad at these guys getting paid. Let me clear all that up. Get paid. Get your money. If a team's going to pay you and they're going to overpay you, pay you. But it's got to come to a point now where we start addressing these contracts, because there's somebody that's going to be better than Jalen Ramsey this year stat-wise. And they're going to become a free agent, and then they're going to command more money than Jalen Ramsey. I don't know where the teams get this money from. Like, there's a salary cap, and the reason why, if you don't remember, in the early 90s, the Cowboys were just stacking up on players. And they instituted that salary cap like around like 92, 93 to keep teams from doing this. But I feel like the salary cap just moves and changes, and it just allows teams to sign these crazy contracts. Again, I am not mad. Jalen Ramsey, get your paper, sir. Because if I was you, I'll be doing the same thing. I'd definitely be getting my paper here. Again, we got the Chiefs and Texans tonight, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, and we'll also talk about the picks. Just on a quick note, Akeem Talib decided to retire from the NFL. Mind you, the Patriots are gonna offer him $6 million for 1 season just to play. And he said his heart wasn't there. Once he realized that he was kind of nervous to check a tight end, he said, okay, it's time to hang it up. And I'm not mad at Akeem Talib for saying hang it up. Now, I will say this, because there was a post going around that said Akeem Talib, Hall of Famer or no. Akeem Talib was a good player. Hall of Fame, no. Appreciate everybody listening to via Facebook Live as well, too. I forgot to mention that. We are via Facebook Live again this week. So, again, we got a lot of things going on here, and, we're just trying to stay busy. But, again, oh, my God, I lost track of thought. I usually never lose track of thought. But I'm going to say this, that the NFL is back, and I'm truly excited. And I was talking about Akeem Talib. He is not a Hall of Famer. I don't want us to get addicted to always calling somebody a Hall of Famer. You had a good career. Thank you. You've served your purpose. I'm not mad at you. I want to say thank you for being in the National Football League. But we're not going to sit there and just yell out, oh, well, he's a Hall of Famer. No, not a Hall of Famer. And I appreciate that somebody that was reaching out to me via text and said that the show was not live for the public via Facebook Live. So I wanted to hang around for guys that, were telling me that I was kind of crazy about my picks. And I'm going to jump out there with them. I'm going to let people come around. I know a lot of people will be chiming in left and right. I jumped out there with making some 2020 predictions. And I took Baltimore to win the AFC North. People say, why am I not saying Pittsburgh? And again, I'll come back to it when somebody wants me to come back to it. Ben Roethlisberger is notorious for missing 3 games a year. Let's just put it out there. Ben Roethlisberger misses 3 games a year. Do you think that Ben can afford to miss 3 games and that team still keep up with Baltimore? No, they're not going to keep up with Baltimore. That's why I took them to win. That's why I took them to win the division. I took Baltimore. It was a walk in the park. Lamar Jackson isn't going to get hurt. Ben Roethlisberger's notorious for missing games. That's just what it is. We're not going to duck around Ben Roethlisberger missing games. So yes, I took Baltimore to win the AFC North. In a shocker, some people would have thought, and you'll hear my reasons behind it, I took Indianapolis to win the AFC South. I think Phillip Rivers is going to be a great addition to that team. Remember, last year they were battling with Jacoby Brissett, who to me may not really be a starter in the National Football League. They get a very experienced Phillip Rivers. I am not saying without a shadow of a doubt that Phillip Rivers is going to get them to the Super Bowl, but I'm saying they have enough to win the AFC South. The AFC West is pretty much a no-brainer when you look at Kansas City, Denver, Las Vegas. Come on now. It's Kansas City's division. No, Kansas City can win 10 games and win the division. They don't even have to win 11 games. That's a 10-game division. The sleeper I kept tossing my coin up on or tossing the quarter up on would have had to have been the AFC East. I went ahead and went with New England because I still feel like at the end of the night, Buffalo is still having nightmares about New England. It doesn't matter if Tom Brady's there, if over the years if Matt Castle was there, Jacoby Brissett played quarterback for a while, or a little bit of Brian Hoyer here and there, or a little bit of Jimmy Garoppolo. I feel like that the AFC East continues to have nightmares about the New England Patriots, and it doesn't matter who's playing quarterback. I get it. They've had a lot of defensive players opt out. But Belichick gets his best out of everybody. Like, Belichick can get his best out of your recycled paper that you threw out in the trash the last couple of days. That's just what Belichick does. So, yes, I took the Patriots to win the AFC East. My wild card, remember this year, guys, there's 3 wild card teams. So, I took Buffalo, Las Vegas, and Houston. And again, Pittsburgh Steelers fans are ready to rip my head off because I went through this. And not saying rip my head off, but they want to know the rationality because they won 8 games last year. And they won 8 with rotating quarterbacks. Again, if Ben plays 12 games, I'd be shocked. Ben is notorious. Remember, he's a guy that sits in the pocket extremely too long. He's getting older. He's 37 years old. So he's not the Ben Roethlisberger of old that can take hits, get back up and say, okay, let me wipe this dirt off and go play again for another down. He's been injured. The history shows he misses a couple of games. They brought Duck Hodges back on their practice squad. Mason Rudolph is still the backup quarterback. Listen, there's no disrespect to Mason Rudolph, but I don't think he's a backup quarterback in the National Football League. He's just not. I think he's okay, but I would like to see if Pittsburgh wanted to shock me, they would go get a credible backup quarterback. Colin Kaepernick, he's sitting there waiting. But you go get a credible backup quarterback just in case that Ben Roethlisberger ends up getting hurt. I took a shocker out of the AFC storyline this year. So my storyline at the AFC would be Cincinnati plays spoiler to help a team get a wild card spot. So remember, my wild card teams are Buffalo, Las Vegas, Houston. So I believe at some point, Cincinnati and the young guy, Joe Burrows, will play spoiler somehow. It's just my gut feeling. I think Cincinnati would be a much more improved team. They'd definitely be much better. It I just don't think right now is their time, but now is their time to play spoiler. So for the teams that did not make the playoffs, I mean, let's just be honest. Are the Jets making the playoffs? No. Are the Miami Dolphins making the playoffs? No. They're rebuilding. I think the Jets are MESSJETS. They're mess Jets. The Cleveland Browns is always that iffy team. But listen, I gave up on Cleveland. I gave up on Cleveland once this Baker Mayfield, Odell Beckham, Jarvis Juice Landry. Oh man, we got this 1-2 connection, and we're just ready, and we're about to make the playoffs. Listen, if you're still the Cleveland Browns, you will not make the playoffs. The Jacksonville Jaguars, if you already know, do I have to mention the Jaguars? Can you name 5 people on their team? Ready, set, go. Name 5 people. Okay, exactly. I'm not wasting time. I'm not even trying to think about naming 5 people. The Tennessee Titans, no disrespect, but they gave Ryan Tannehill a big contract over Derrick Henry. So they gave Derrick Henry the minimum and gave Ryan Tannehill uh basically almost a max deal. Am I right on this? They gave him close to being a max deal. I they're not going far. Tennessee's not going far. The AFC West, Denver's going to go through a lot of struggles. I don't think Drew Lock will finish the season as a starting quarterback for Denver. They've got a lot of rebuilding to do. I think this will be John Elway's last year in that front office. Um, they definitely got a ton of rebuilding to do. They did good in the draft. Von Miller probably out the entire 2020 2021 season with the ankle injury. He looks to get a second opinion, but I think Denver's going to struggle as well. The Las Vegas Raiders, I said, would make the playoffs. They're going to be a very shocking team to me because you brought Gruden in and you brought him in on this massive contract for 10 years, whatever, 10 years, $100 million. And I think that Derek Carr understands that he's on the shortest string ever this year. He doesn't perform at the level he performed a couple of years ago. John Gruden's going to pull him. John Gruden's going to go back to the drawing board and get a brand new quarterback. I think Derek Carr will play with the chip on his shoulder this year, and this will help the Las Vegas Raiders with their new location enter the playoffs. The LA Chargers, again, another team rebuilding. They're starting Tyrod Taylor week 1, which is a good thing because Justin Herbert's not ready to start yet. I don't think this rookie class is ready to start yet. I wish Joe Burrows could probably get a couple of games to kind of relax and get a chance to watch the speed of the NFL, but it is not going to happen. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is how I came up with the AFC predictions for the year. All right, let's move along and go to the NFC. And again, I appreciate everybody listening to the podcast on your local platform and everybody that's listening live via Facebook. Definitely appreciate it. So we moved right along. We went to the NFC. We took the Green Bay Packers to win the NFC North, the New Orleans Saints to win the NFC South. In a shocker, the Arizona Cardinals will win the NFC West. And of course, my beloved Dallas Cowboys will win the NFC East. Woo! Where do I piss people off at more? I've pissed people off on Arizona winning the NFC West. And many people are asking me, how did you come up with Arizona out of all people winning the NFC West? Here's the thought process behind it. Kyler Murray will be good. They have DeAndre Hopkins, Kenyon Drake. If you don't think that this team is going to be ready, they are ready. Cliff Kingsbury, to me, probably isn't going to be the best head coach, but he's going to get a shit ton of credit. And I hate to use those type of words on my podcast, but damn it, it is my podcast, and I will use those words. He is going to get a ton of the credit for that team making the playoffs and winning their division. Again, they're going to win the NFC West, and I know you guys are irritated at me. You guys are like, "Are you crazy?" No, I'm not crazy. I am not crazy at all. I truly believe that the Arizona Cardinals could win the NFC West. When so man, I really wish I could like explain it to you a whole. I want to explain it more and more and deeper in detail, but you'll get me over the top of it. You'll get me upset probably, and I'll probably start going crazy. But Arizona has the talent there. And it's not to take away from the San Francisco 49ers and the Seattle Seahawks, which I'll end up talking about in a minute. But I'm not taking away from none of them. But Arizona, it's time. That division is always a little tricky anyway. Um, so say less. I'm not going to keep bugging you about that. Green Bay was an easy pick out the NFC North. Chicago and Detroit are there. You flip a coin with Green Bay and Minnesota. If I don't know how many primetime games Kirk Cousins has, but if Kirk Cousins has a primetime game, they're not going to survive. Kirk Cousins is not a primetime guy. I take Aaron Rodgers. They're going to win the division. For me, I'm always going to take Dallas to win the NFC East. Legitimately, though, like if you asked me like the last 2 or 3 years, I would have taken Dallas. I'm taking Dallas every single year right here. Dallas had bad years, and years I would have been like, nah, they ain't going to win the division. Dallas is Dallas sometimes could be in their own way. And I'll talk about in their own way with somebody else later on. Dallas could sometimes be in their own way, meaning that they don't win games they're supposed to win. Last year, I'll circle back to it. They lost a very important game, and they lost to the New York Jets. They got blown out in the first quarter by the New York Jets. That was a huge loss. That loss to me turned the season from okay to I don't know if we really can do this. My wild card teams are Minnesota, Tom Brady's Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the San Francisco 49ers. I took a shocker out of the NFC, and I stated that Seattle will miss the playoffs. People are like, are you kidding me? Most people have Seattle as a Super Bowl favorite. Let me explain to you this. The 12th man isn't the 12th man if nobody's there. It's a even playing field. These are the things I populate through my brain. I just don't come up with I guess a Skip Bayless or I'm not trolling this. I'm not doing this for likes. I'm doing it to voice my opinion, but I'm here to give you some facts behind my opinion. There is no 12th man this year. Seattle thrives off the crowd noise. Seattle is a team that needs that crowd noise. They need that feeling. Some teams can battle without it. I think Seattle is one of those teams that need it, and they will struggle. I took Seattle to miss the playoffs. And in the Super Bowl, as long as they don't disappoint me, I have taken the Baltimore Ravens over the New Orleans Saints. Baltimore has definitely bolstered their defense. Lamar Jackson, I think, will be a little bit more comfortable. I think he won't underestimate teams going into the playoffs no more. That's what a young quarterback does. It almost reminds me somewhat of a Vic underestimating teams. I think Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens will win the Super Bowl. Just real quick here, Offensive Rookie of the Year, I've got Justin Jefferson for the Vikings. Remember, Kirk Cousins loves a guy like Justin Jefferson. He loves to throw the ball. While Dalvin Cook definitely will be sensational, I think I'm going to take Justin Jefferson as the Rookie of the Year. The Defensive Rookie of the Year will be Jeff Okudah out of Detroit. I tossed a coin up with this one. Let me not make Redskins fans upset or the Washington football team. I apologize about that. I like Chase Young. And I think Chase Young will probably fight Jeff Okudah for this Defensive Rookie of the Year. I did not watch Okudah in college, but I YouTubed him recently. I think this kid can play. I think this kid's going to be an elite cornerback in the National Football League. My opinion only. The Offensive Player of the Year will be Michael Thomas for the New Orleans Saints. Drew Brees will slant Michael Thomas to death, and Michael Thomas is going to take a couple of those slants to the house. Nick Bosa will be the Defensive Player of the Year. Let me tell you something. That guy can play. That guy is, man, listen. That guy can play the game of football. And that's why I made the San Francisco a wild card team. Because their quarterback plays a wild card. Is Jimmy Garoppolo going to take the next step up? Or is he going to digress? Is he going to go a little backwards? Is he going to go into mediocrity as a quarterback? Or is he going to take the next step and become an elite quarterback in the NFL? That's why I called them a wild card. You have to understand those things. It is time for Jimmy G to show up. He did not play well. He did not play well in the Super Bowl. When the lights were on, he did not play well. Don't be afraid to tap in whenever you feel like you want to tap in. Um, I also have coach of the year going to Frank Wright, Indianapolis coach. Again, Indianapolis would be a sneaky team this year. Me and my guy Rod talked about this from Rod's World. Um, Rod's got Indy going very far. I got Indy being a sleeper this year because Indy's going to be that team that nobody expects to do well. But remember, there's some history with Frank Wright and Phillip Rivers. The MVP, of course, would be the back-to-back MVP. Or I shouldn't say back-to-back MVP, but Patrick Mahomes will win the most valuable player. I'm looking through the comments from earlier, and again, people are laughing at me because I took Arizona. I got told that this was a bold pick, of course. Pittsburgh, Aaron Pittsburgh Davis reached out and goes, I'm going to read some of the things here. Your disrespect for the Steelers is unbelievable. 8-8 last year with multiple quarterbacks. Even I got some snaps. All the running backs got hurt. Top three defense with all but one guy returning, and you don't mention the Steelers. I cut him deep. And again, I told Pittsburgh it's straightforward. I'm not disrespecting the Steelers. They did. They had 8-8 with multiple quarterbacks. It felt like they could have just went on here and signed Tebow at 1.2. They do have a good defense. But again, I'm looking at Ben Roethlisberger's durability. Again, James Hagens, 49ers fan, he said I gone full-blown crazy. I think I broke the Arizona thing down good enough that I did not have to waste any more of my energy and waste your ear time having to listen to Arizona. All right, so what we will do is we'll take a quick break. We'll come back from the break. We'll talk about the Raptors forcing a Game 7. Ugh, man, I don't even want to talk about the Raptors forcing a Game 7. But we'll talk about the Raptors forcing a Game 7 against the Celtics, Giannis Antetokounmpo's future, and much more. You're listening to the Unscripted podcast. Hang tight, folks.
This is President Barack Obama. In the story of America, the greatest chapters are moments of challenge, when we see people serving their country and one another. Volunteers who step forward into hospital corridors and church basements, along levees and fire lines. And the next chapter is yours to help write. Sign up to volunteer at usaservice.org. That's usaservice.org. Let's renew America together.
A message from Renew America Together, brought to you by the Ad Council.
Confessions of a Potentially Perfect Parent, brought to you by AdoptUsKids.org.
I might look like an adult, like a person who could possibly be a parent, but I have no idea how to talk like one. And everyone knows that if you want to be a parent, you have to sound good when you say things like, "Don't make me turn this car around," or "because I said so," or "Don't make me come back there." I don't even really know what those things mean, but I know that I actually believed my parents when they said them to me. How did they manage to sound so convincing? Here we go. "Don't make me come back there." Oh, no, that's not tough enough at all. Kids can sense weakness. "Don't make me come back there." Ooh, yeah, that's better. In fact, that kind of sounded like my dad. Weird.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of teens in foster care who would love to listen to you practice your dad voice. Call 1-888-200-4005 or visit AdoptUsKids.org for more information. This message brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt Us Kids, and the Ad Council.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Unscripted podcast. Again, the NFL is back tonight. For those who are listening via Facebook stream, you guys don't get a chance to get the commercials. That's why it's always good to always tune in via the audio stream so you get a little bit of the commercial break. So we dug in a lot about my predictions, and we talked about my shockers, my spoilers. I just want to say, it's my opinion. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, I know people are going to go back to the screenshots and be like, "Oh, yeah, you said Arizona was going to win the NFC West." Yeah. So tonight, again, I like the Kansas City Chiefs opening up against the Houston Texans. Deshaun Watson getting paid. No DeAndre Hopkins. I like Kansas City almost in a blowout win. Even though the gambling odds tells you to take Houston in the 9 points, I'm looking at it now. I like KC in a blowout. All right, so um, Toronto forces Game 7 against the Celtics, and I know, everybody's waiting to hear, oh yeah, man, I want to hear if you're just gonna be fair or if you're just gonna sit there and cry on your podcast about the Celtics being ripped off by the refs and yeah, nah, I'm not gonna mention about the Celtics being ripped off by the refs and all these bogus calls and Fred Van Vliet 3-pointer flop that he got up and grabbed his ankle and got the call and started walking off. I'm not even gonna mention that. Uh, I'm going to mention that they have pushed them to the brinks, and they have pushed a Game 7. And you know what? Shout out to the Toronto Raptors. They played hard. I'm not going to, man. I'm just so frustrated. It's hard, man. It's hard to even like to talk about this, man, because they shouldn't be at Game 7. I think the referees for Game 7, I want to see them put the whistle down a little bit more. Game 6 was controlled by a lot of whistles, uh, and I think they started falling for Toronto's flopping more. Boston is a physical team. Let me clear something up. Marcus Smart flops. Let's not even hide that fact. Marcus Smart is a flopper. But Kyle Lowry and Fred Van Vliet, I call them flopping Van Vliet because he's another one. They get tapped and they just do backflips and the referees fall for it. So I'm saying Game 7, I want to see an actual Game 7. I don't want to see where the referees control it, start blowing whistles. Because remember, at one point, the Celtics were up 12, and there's no excuse. I always say that basketball is a game full of runs, and the Celtics were up 12, and Toronto made a run. But in between Toronto making the run, Boston got called for a flagrant one foul on a three-point attempt, which gave Van Vliet 3 free throw attempts that he made all 3, and the ball, and they made another 3, and Van Vliet was supposedly hurt, but he made another 3, and it was a 6-point swing around. People will say, okay, Brian, if you're up 12 and they make 2 threes, then you're still up 6. Any game, and especially basketball, is all about momentum. The Celtics had the momentum, and Tony Brothers, for God knows why, he just loves to take things away from Boston. It's one of his biggest things. But no here or there. I want to be biased, and I want to thank the Raptors because they came out there and they played hard. In the second overtime, Norman Powell had 10 points. Listen, in the second overtime, I got so frustrated because, and I'll talk about this guy for a second after Norman Powell. Norman Powell came out and was hungry. Probably he wanted to get off the court because 2 overtimes, everybody was gassed. People played 40-plus minutes. But the guy I want to talk about is Jaylen Brown. While Jaylen Brown did play well, I think in the first overtime and maybe the second overtime, Jaylen Brown got in his own way. When I say he got in his way, okay, he had only 3 turnovers, right? But the 3 turnovers he had were so crucial. There was one where Boston was was it 4 or 6 points in the overtime? And he went 1 on 4. That's where Brad Stevens has to yell, pull it back out. Pull it back out. I think Jaylen Brown is a good player. I think he's going to be great for this league. I know everybody pulls my tweets up when I was saying Jaylen Brown was going to be a bust. Whatever. It doesn't matter. Jaylen Brown has been great for that team. Jason Tatum played well. Again, I think Toronto got more production from especially the bench with Serge Ibaka coming into the game and Norman Powell with the Celtics. Really didn't get that energy off the bench. They did for a spark of Robert Williams and a spark of Brad Wanamaker. This is where they are missing Gordon Hayward at. You would love to always see the Celtics. I think that's going to be the Celtics 30 for 30. What if Gordon Hayward was in the game? Because remember, the year they made the Eastern Conference Finals, Kyrie, Gordon Hayward, gone. This year, they're close to the Eastern Conference Finals, no Gordon Hayward. If they make it the Eastern Conference Finals, they still gonna go with no Gordon Hayward. I think that injury is gonna be a one to linger him throughout the rest of the year. And they may have to go with Gordon Hayward out the rest of the year, but that's gonna be the ESPN 30 for 30. All right, I want to shift gears here and talk about Giannis Antetokounmpo. The Milwaukee Bucks were bounced out the playoffs in 5 games by the Miami Heat. I can tell you this: I was completely shocked that the Miami Heat bounced them out in 5 games. I thought that Miami would beat them maybe in 6, 7. They ended up beating them in 5 games. To me, um, Giannis is going to need some type of help. When I say help, he needs consistent help. Max Kellerman, for the first time ever, there is the first time for everything. He made sense. Richard Jefferson called Giannis Pippen. Max Kellerman said Giannis is more of a Shaquille O'Neal looking for Kobe. That made more sense than anything. But the thing that could happen, that probably won't happen, that can't happen is Mike Mike Budenholzer's job is safe as the Milwaukee Bucks head coach, even though best record 2 years bounced out. The guy that could be traded is Eric Bledsoe, not Eric Bledsoe. Eric Bledsoe. Eric Bledsoe stole this contract. Like, he was never that good of a point guard. I think he was solid. I think they wish they would have kept Malcolm Brogdon, but I get it. You have to throw up a coin and go, do I keep Brogdon, Middleton, Giannis, Bledsoe? Which group of guys do I keep? I always felt like Bledsoe just wasn't the guy. I think Bledsoe was more of a Kyle Lowry from a couple of years ago, where everybody just kept saying Lowry is not the guy. And credit to Kyle Lowry, he has played well since the breakup of DeMar DeRozan. And then he got a chance to link up with Kawhi Leonard and win an NBA championship. He has played well. Eric Bledsoe hasn't. People forget, like, he's in the middle of a 4-year, $70 million extension, and he has not played up to that standard. So I'm looking for the Bucks, and I'll mention this name. I think the Bucks could make a move at a Chris Paul. I don't think Chris Paul wants to live in Wisconsin, but I mean, we talk about winning, and you talk about possibly, wanting to compete for a championship for a guy like Chris Paul. It would have to be, Milwaukee, or the obvious that everybody thinks that will happen is the Los Angeles Lakers. Um, for Paul, he played well with Oklahoma City. Again, I mentioned this on every podcast. Had an 0.2% chance to make the playoffs, and they made the playoffs. The wild thing about Oklahoma City is that Billy Donovan is out as head coach. Now, I didn't see that coming at all. Like, if you ask me a couple of different things, I didn't think that Billy Donovan was going to be out as head coach of the Oklahoma City Thunder. I think that Sam Presti on this one has dropped the ball. I think that maybe Donovan didn't live up to all of your expectations. But remember this. Losing Durant, trading Westbrook, Ibaka's gone. He had to kind of rebuild this team from the ground up. They made the playoffs. And the two sides, air quote, the two sides have mutually agreed to part ways. Do you guys know what mutually agreed to part ways is? Billy Donovan went in Presti's office. Billy Donovan sees the future this way. Presti sees it this way. They can't agree. Billy Donovan says, let me pack my bags up and I'll just go. Billy Donovan will be a courted head coach. Remember, over a decade ago, he snubbed the crap out of Orlando, and I didn't think he would ever get this opportunity again. But I think he's definitely going to be a courted head coach. There still are a ton of openings in the NBA. I see that Chauncey Billups has thrown his name into the hat, and possibly becoming a head coach. And it looks like the Indiana Pacers are really serious. If it's one team that does this a lot, it would be the Pacers. The Pacers did this with Larry Bird. They did it with Isaiah Thomas. They bring people from straight with no coaching resume straight on to being a head coach. So I would like to see Chauncey get a shot like that. And if it's not Chauncey, of course, I'm always going to root for Becky Hammond. I definitely think that young lady deserves an opportunity to be a head coach in the NBA. She studied underneath Greg Popovich for the last 5.5, 6 seasons. I must say that Becky Hammond definitely should be a head coach. Steve Nash here talks about skipping the line. I know Stephen A. talked about white privilege and Nash, I'm just quoting something here. Well, I did skip the line. Nash said, at the same time, I think leading the NBA team for almost 2 decades is pretty unique. Listen, I think Steve Nash leading a team for almost 2 decades is unique. But I say this again. Wouldn't you have loved to see another guy get that job? I mean, like, look what I get it. Steve Nash is walking into a ton of pressure. So if he doesn't come out the bat and Brooklyn isn't hitting on all cylinders, people are going to say, well, Steve Nash the right guy. But I'm talking about the opportunity he's given. He doesn't have to rebuild a rebuilding team. Like, Steve Nash didn't get hired by the Chicago Bulls. Steve Nash didn't get hired by the Minnesota Timberwolves. He got hired by the Brooklyn Nets with 2 NBA champions already on that team in Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. So I get what everybody wants to say, about the whole white privilege thing. And, I kind of want Nash to go around it and be a little bit more humbler. Because I don't feel like he was humble by saying, I skipped the line, blah, blah, blah. I know he stated that we have a long way to go to find equality and social and racial justice. I would have just loved to see, again, I always say this, I would have loved to see another guy get the job. Just something on not a personal note here, but Mark Jackson had a live going on last week, and I snuck a question in which he answered, and I appreciate Coach Mark Jackson for answering that question. I asked him would he ever consider, because for some reason black coaches get stuck with the lead assistant job. So I asked Mark, would he mind taking a lead assistant job? And Mark Jackson told me, no, sir, no way, I would not take a lead assistant job. But he explained why. He's a lead commentator on the worldwide leading network, and he believes that he's a head coach in the NBA. I got to respect that for Mark Jackson. That guy does not feel like he should be a lead assistant. And guess what? You know your worth. You know your value. If you feel like that your value says head coach, then guess what? You're going to be you want to be a head coach. There's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. So again, I was at first I wanted to know why Mark was not basically, not considering taking the a lead assistant job, and it makes sense now why he didn't take a lead assistant job. All right. So, again, NFL is tonight. You guys get an opportunity to drink some beer and enjoy the football game tonight. I don't know what to expect. I know, no crowd. How will the NFL factor in some noise? I think we all will still enjoy it. We'll find a way to enjoy it. And then we know Sunday, all the games get going. And then also prayers go out to Dak Prescott. He dealt with anxiety and depression after his brother's suicide death. Listen, we joke around a lot, but mental health is something very, very serious. Whether you play a sport or whether you get up and go to a 9 to 5 every day, mental health plays a big part in people's lives. And some people truly just need help getting over things. So continue to support each other and love each other. And with that being said, I appreciate you taking time out, listen to the podcast on your local platform. Remember, if you have iTunes, rate, review, and subscribe. Remember, God is love. Get some. It's the Unscripted Podcast, and we'll see you on the other side.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Unscripted Podcast. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. We'll see you next time.